Hello and welcome to Prime Property, your weekly real estate reckoner. I'm Tara Rai and this is what we have on the show today. Further, buyers of the Supertech projects complain the refund is not at par with market rates. We find out what consumers must do to protect their interests. Home buyers left in a lurch as the Allahabad High Court orders well-known realty firm Supertech to demolish 2 illegal towers in Noida and refund buyers with 14% compound interest. Supertech and buyers to now approach the Supreme Court. And Lodha developers to conclude one of Bombay's most expensive land deals as it announces the third big property acquisition in 5 months for over 5,000 crore rupees.
रूल रेगुलेशंस की धज्जियां उड़ाई जा रही हैं।
हम लोग 25 साल से इस बिजनेस के अंदर हैं। इतने सालों के अंदर क्या हमको घर बनाना नहीं आता?
हमने एक एक पैसे करके जोड़ के इस मकान में लगाया है।
As a buyer, आज मुझे in my mind I need closure of this issue. I need either the apartment or the money.
हमारे अरमान चकनाचूर हो गए। मतलब एक माँ जैसे अपने बच्चे को बढ़ता हुआ देखती है ना, हमने इसको भी ऐसे ही बढ़ते हुए देखा है।
A dream home that's now turned into a nightmare. More than 600 buyers are now left in a lurch as their builder, Supertech, a well-known name in Noida in the National Capital Region, has been directed by the Allahabad High Court to demolish these 2 under-construction towers within the next 4 months. Sending shockwaves with its strongly worded judgment, the Allahabad High Court declared the construction of these 2 towers illegal and also directed Supertech to refund customers at 14% compound interest. It doesn't stop at that. The High Court has also directed the officials of the Noida Authority who gave the sanctions for the construction be identified and prosecuted. So what went wrong? While passing the order, the bench of Justices V.K. Shukla and Suneet Kumar said, and I quote for you, "It has repeatedly come to the notice that builders, by joining hands with the officers of the development authorities, openly flout every conceivable rule, including building regulations. The builder is always under the impression that once the frame of the building is illegally constructed, the court can be persuaded to take a sympathetic view and permit the construction even though in total breach of legal provisions," unquote. These 2 towers that are now sealed are part of a larger Supertech residential complex, Emerald Court. Spread over 14 acres, the Emerald Court houses 15 other towers, fully built with residents living here. It was the Resident Welfare Association of these 15 towers that dragged Supertech to the Allahabad High Court over the new towers that were coming up. In its writ petition, the RWA alleged approval and construction of the 2 towers was in complete violation of the UP Apartment Act. The petitioner claimed the Noida Authority had given permission to raise the height of the 2 towers from 11 stories to 24 to finally 40 stories without maintaining the mandatory distance of 16 meters from an adjoining building block, making it unsafe apart from blocking air and light. It also alleged the area earmarked for a children's park and open green space had been compromised. At its end, Supertech pleaded it had already incurred a lot of expense in the construction of these 2 towers, Apex and Sian, which is at an advanced stage with 21 floors having been constructed in Apex and 17 in Sian. But none of this impressed the Allahabad High Court that said, taking advantage of the situation, the builder lobby is exploiting people's needs by setting up illegal construction, and the unfortunate part of this is that it has active assistance of the officers of the Development Authority. The time has come when everyone should realize that rule of law is not a purchasable commodity and illegalities will not be tolerated merely because the builder has taken protection against the sanction, which admittedly is illegal and in violation of building regulations. The court also rejected Supertech's plea that multiple third-party interests had been created via the successful sale of apartments in these 2 towers. Only 230 of the 857 flats remain unsold in the 2 towers. About 100 meters away from the 2 sealed towers is the office of the Resident Welfare Association that brought Supertech to its knees at the High Court. SBS Theotia, a retired Deputy Inspector General of the Police, was instrumental in fighting Supertech and says his initial complaints were ignored by the Noida Authority and Uttar Pradesh's Minister for Urban Development, Azam Khan. The association remains active under the leadership of Theotia, filing caveats in the Supreme Court to make sure it is heard before any other verdict is given and before buyers of new towers are made a party in the case. Supertech's chairman and managing director, R.K. Arora, has been busy meeting a battery of lawyers to move Supreme Court.
We are moving to the Supreme Court with our facts and figure, because we made this building as per the bylaws and as per the National Building Code 2005, and there is no violation in the construction at all. That's why we are planning to move into the Supreme Court for the relief for this project.
We also asked Supertech if any of the 600 plus buyers had approached the company seeking a refund with the 14% compound interest, as has been ordered by the court.
We have already given options to our buyer. On the same day we have received this order from the High Court. If anybody want to continue with us, if anybody want to wait some time, then he can wait for some time till the Supreme Court decision. And if somebody want to take their money back, we are open to pay back. And if somebody want to go into the other projects, we are also open.
Buyers say they have been left holding the wrong end of the stick and will also seek justice at the Supreme Court.
There's no words to describe it. I mean, you're losing. It's not that I'm having any black money or any other, wrong doings. It's basically what I worked that I went and put here.
किसी तरीके से हमें ये कहा जाए कि तुम पैसे ले लो और ये छोड़ दो, तो वो हम नहीं कर सकते, क्योंकि हमारे अरमान भी जुड़े हुए हैं, हमारे बच्चों के अरमान भी जुड़े हुए हैं.
जो वो 14% वो हमें रिटर्न दिला रहे हैं, क्या ये सफिशिएंट है, मतलब इस लोकेलिटी में फ्लैट खरीदने के लिए?
The two towers in question had been launched in 2010 at a basic price of around 2,800 rupees a square foot. With a 14% compound interest added on, buyers who bought at the time of a launch will be refunded at an approximate rate of 5,400 rupees a square foot. But the market price is much higher in Sector 93 of Noida, where Supertech's Emerald Court is located. The prevailing market price is around 7,000 rupees a square foot, and one of the biggest complaints by the Supertech buyers is they can no longer afford to buy a home in their locality of choice. RICS, or the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, says it's against all such exit plans.
Today we are looking at prices being at least at a minimum of 3 to 4 times of what the buyer gave at the time of booking the flat. So today, given that that is an option, if he gets back his principal and his interest and he is expected to buy another house, are we saying that he can go to the same particular area and try and get another flat? Answer is clearly no.
But how did things get so bad for Supertech and its buyers? What can you do to protect your rights going forward? What is the minimum due diligence you must do before buying a house? I reached out to lawyer Vedant Verma for these answers. Here's that conversation. Vedant, a perception now exists that Supertech was cherry-picking clauses from several acts to claim it was in the clear. They was quoting bylaws from older legislations to say it had met safety standards, but then conveniently was cherry-picking from newer legislations when it wanted to enjoy higher FAR. Can you take us to the chronology of events? Why is it that Supertech has got such an adverse order at the Allahabad High Court?
The initial sanction on this piece of land was for a shopping center and a residential tower of 11 floors. Supertech thereafter asked the building authority to grant them permission to construct 2 towers of 24 floors each. Now, till this point, they were absolutely in the clear. They were complying with all rules, all acts, all regulations. However, in 2012, they purchased additional FAR and they applied for a sanction to construct 40 floors up to 121 meters. However, at this point, a new regulation had come into existence. So till the previous sanction, they were completely in the clear. However, as per the 2012 sanction, they were required to maintain a distance of 16 meters between the existing tower and the tower which was proposed to come up. They violated that. Now, over here, when you use the word cherry picking, perhaps they were, because they say that the additional permission that we've gotten, the new sanction that we've gotten in 2012, is only to take an existing sanction higher. It has nothing else. We're not asking to build more area in terms of ground coverage or anything like that. However, the word used is cherry picked. They have cherry picked the previous regulations. The courts have cherry picked the 2012 regulations, and the courts have held against them.
It's pretty clear that this entire case is now headed for the Supreme Court. Would you agree with consumers that they have been left in a lurch? They claim their life savings are now in jeopardy.
I feel that these cases could have gone on a lot longer, and they would be in a position where the courts would have stayed the construction over there. and the developer would have sat on the consumer's money for several years. So I think that this case has gone on pretty quick. They've been asked, the developer has been asked to refund the money pretty quickly along with compounded interest. I think that the consumers aren't that bad off. Considering that if the Supreme Court actually does even entertain the special leave petition, the order which is being challenged is an order of demolition and refund of money. If the Supreme Court grants a stay, it will be a stay of demolition, and the developer, depending on the legal advice he gets, would deem it prudent to not continue this construction because there is so much at stake for him. He would prefer to wait for the outcome in the Supreme Court, and if he wins, then to go ahead, and if he loses, then to demolish as directed by the High Court.
But Vedant, if you take that 14% compound interest, the refund to buyers is not at par with market rates. What can consumers do? Can they ask the Supreme Court for a higher compensation?
Well, the fate of the consumers essentially rests with the fate of the developers as well. If the developer succeeds, then the consumer succeeds along with them. However, insofar as the grievance in relation to the amount of money which is being refunded is concerned, they always have the options of approaching the Supreme Court and filing a special leave petition over there after having obtained special permission from the Supreme Court to do so.
Okay, so consumers can seek legal recourse to get a higher compensation. That's an important point. Now, as a lawyer, what's your sense? Will the Supreme Court entertain the Supertech case? And does the builder have a case at all?
You see, if the High Courts were right in the first instance, you wouldn't need the Supreme Court. I assume that the Supreme Court will admit this because of the stakes involved. However, after having studied the judgment of the Allahabad High Court, I have formed an opinion, a professional opinion, that they have acted correctly and there was a contravention. The law has to be seen on the date that the sanction was applied for. As per the law on that date, they were supposed to have a setback of 16 meters between the existing tower and the new tower, which is admittedly not the case. It's only 9 meters, which poses a safety issue to the existing tower, and therefore the court has proceeded on that basis. And the court has also actually, I might add over here, it's come down very heavily on the Noida authority and has directed investigations against their officials for having granted the sanction, which was not in conformity with the regulations as per the Act.
And Vedant, what do you see as an aftermath of the Allahabad High Court verdict? You know, unless upturned at the Supreme Court, we're talking about a very strong precedent being created.
What this judgment actually does is it sets a very strong precedent, and it acts as a deterrent to developers who try and arm twist authorities and mislead consumers in actually getting permissions and sanctions for these large developments. What I see as an aftermath of this judgment is that everyone will be a little more cautious, and a developer here or there who may interpret the law in his favor would perhaps best be advised not to do so anymore and weigh out his legal options, because financially, if this order is upheld, it will be a huge loss for Supertech.
You know, it's anyway always better to err on the side of caution before buying a house. Sometimes buyers get caught up with builders and brokers' marketing gimmicks. I want you to tell me a basic due diligence test that buyers must carry out.
I would tell the consumers to weigh their options carefully, to do their due diligence before they purchase any property, and to have a strong resident welfare association, as is seen in this case, to get them through any kind of violation in the law.
That's right, a strong RWA is indeed very important in these days of consumer activism. But Vedant, give me a list of the top 3 things consumers must keep in mind while doing a due diligence.
Well, the first thing that they should see is whether the title is clear. The second thing they should see is whether all valid sanctions have been given. And the third thing they should see is whether there are any litigations pending post the sanction granted to the developer.
Now, this is all very easy to say, but let's get real. Is it really feasible for buyers to get a ready reckoner of all the sanctions that are needed and then to chase that up with builders to find out what all approvals have been received and what all still have not been received?
Absolutely, you know, and which is why it's important for the consumers also to collect before making a decision. And what is also important, and this case actually highlights this need, is that you need a regulatory body for real estate. It's essential, it's absolutely imperative right now. This case highlights the great need for this, and I feel that it should be set up immediately, and it should have a retired Supreme Court or High Court judge at its helm. It should have someone, a representative from the real estate world, and it's actually the correct body to look forward.
Okay, I don't know when we're going to see a real estate regulator. We've been hearing about it for years now. Now, in the absence of one, Who is a consumer supposed to trust? For example, in the Supertech case, banks were giving home loans for the 2 towers that the Allahabad High Court now wants demolished. Can consumers not even trust the due diligence that is carried out by banks?
You see, as far as the due diligence of the banks are concerned, yes, they could have gone into more detail, but a basic due diligence would have been conducted, and for that they would have looked at the actual sanction which was with the developer. It's not the case that the developer did not have a sanction, and it is certainly not the case that the developer deviated from this sanction. The developer acted on the basis of a past sanction, and the bank looked at that, and I'm guessing it's on that basis that they gave home loans to consumers. And let's not forget that there may have been institutions which actually funded this project, which invested money with the developer as well. Their rights and contentions have also to be determined now that these towers are going down.
So do you foresee a situation where banks may slow down the disbursement of home loans for projects in Noida?
I think they ought to. However, I'm sure that in all the contracts that the bank signs, they indemnify themselves against the developer. And for that, they'll have to go to court eventually to get their rights back. But I think that banks will be more diligent. You rightly said that it will have an impact on them as well. Let's see how this turns out. I feel that everyone, all around, developers, consumers, lenders, purchasers, everyone will have to be a little more cautious going forward from here.
So it seems the Supertech case has stirred a hornet's nest. The alleged Babu Builder Nexus. Builders increasing FAR after launching a project are fundamental wrongs that clearly go against consumer interest. Let's hope the new government will address all of these issues. On that note, we're going to slip into a short break. On the other side of prime property, we head to Mumbai, where the Lodha Group has announced one of the most expensive land deals. Stay tuned.